Hello there. Hi there. My name's Pete Hammond. I'm going to moderate tonight, and I hope you all enjoyed Interstellar. Without further ado, you're here on a great night. We have the three stars of the film here, and they are so terrific in this film. First, as Murph, she's a two-time Academy Award nominee for The Help and Zero Dark 30, a three-time SAG nominee, as well as a winner there, and so many movies coming out, including Most Violent Year. Please welcome Jessica Chastain. Okay, yeah, right here.
Sorry.
How are you? All right. Now, she is an Academy Award and SAG winner for Les Miserables. She actually worked with Christopher Nolan before. You might have remembered her as Catwoman in Dark Knight Rises. And she is fantastic in this film, a veteran of so many great movies. Please welcome Anne Hathaway. All right, and he is our most recent Best Actor Oscar winner and SAG winner as well, and just got the American Cinematheque Award this week. He is so terrific in so many things. Please welcome Matthew McConaughey. All right. Thanks, everybody, and congratulations on this movie. It's quite an achievement, I think. And Matthew, let me start with you, because this is such a big scale film, but it's got a lot of smaller scale human emotion to it that I haven't seen in this kind of film before, at least in a long time. It's a very emotional film. Can you talk about what drew you to this project?
Yeah. Well, there's Chris. Nolan is the director. There's a script that I was absolutely wowed by that took me 5.5 hours to read, and I had quite a few notes and quite a few questions. It was the most epic sort of wild journey, going further into space than any film or anything I'd ever read before. What else was good about it at that time? Had a good meeting with Chris. Now, like on the epic journey and the intimacy. Yeah, that's hard. I would say you could look at it and go, it's hard to balance in a film like this, but that sort of connotates that it's two different things. I think what I got from this is that they're very integrated. You really couldn't have one without the other, meaning the further out we get, it actually seems like the more personal the film becomes. That's not as much a balance, but an integrated effort. I mean, I think the intimacy obviously serves the epic nature. Nobody that I know out there gets more size and scope onto the screen like Christopher Nolan. And, so you've got this, on one side you could say it's science fiction, it's this great grand adventure. On the other side you could say it's a love story between a father and a daughter. But they're majorly integrated. And it's something else how the further out you get, the larger the film gets, actually the more personal that the film gets.
You know, I was talking to Christopher Nolan, and he told me, he said he really didn't have you come in and give you the script or anything. You just sort of met for a few hours, right?
We met for 3 hours. I met him, and I didn't hear the word Interstellar. I didn't hear the word Cooper. I didn't know anything more about what this film or script was about than when I went to meet him. And I do remember walking out going, what the hell is that? I enjoyed it. We had a good meeting. We talked about being fathers, talked about being men, talked about where we were from, talked about how we were the same age, but I had no idea what the meeting was about. And evidently, he got something out of it because the script came to me about a week later, and it was for me to read. But that was our first meeting. Not one word about this film.
That's so interesting. He said too, this was way before you won the Oscar, obviously, and all these reconnaissance, as people keep saying. And he said he saw someone sent him mud, and he said, "Wow!" He just went, "Wow!" And he really wanted to meet you for this. You know, something sparked for him there.
That's what he had mentioned to me. I remember I saw him about a year before we started Interstellar, and ran into him in a public place, and he just came up and he said, "Mud." And I said, yeah, I love that film. And he goes, I think you were great in it. And that was what he had said. So that was evidently in his craw. That was something he was thinking about.
Now, Anne, you, of the three here, have actually worked with Christopher Nolan before, as I mentioned, famously as Catwoman. And so what was it like this time, or was there a different vibe for you, having worked with him before? What was it about Christopher Nolan that...
I don't know that Chris was necessarily different. I think I was different maybe. I think I was maybe a tiny bit more relaxed. You know, I can't think of a better compliment to get than to say, please come back, I'd like to work with you again. And so I think, you know, it was all the same stuff that was there in the first film, but in the first film, I trusted Chris theoretically because I loved his other films. You know, that was what the trust was based off of. In this one, the trust was based off of I was really proud of what we had done together, and yeah, I mean, it was the easiest yes I've ever said. For me, reading the script was a formality, and I was thrilled to find out that I was going to be playing a great part, but I would have played the dust happily.
Well, that was a big part.
Very big part.
And, you know, the whole thing of this astronaut, did you have someone on the set, like an astronaut or somebody that you got to work with or someone that you could do research with here? How did that work out?
Yeah, Marsha Ivins was a consultant on our movie. She's been up to space 5 times. And I mean, she's just and she's a great woman and an American hero. And she was a great resource to me, just kind of talking about everything. You know, first you ask all the basic questions: what's zero G like? You know, how did you know that you wanted to be an astronaut? What were the challenges? Were the challenges being a woman? And she was so great to talk to that a few hours later, I was like, yo, how do you take a shower in space? Like, how does that work? And it's fascinating. But so she was totally crucial. And she wound up sending me a ton of videos that she had shot while she was up in space. And that really informed a lot of the movements when we were shooting the zero-G stuff.
Was it easy wearing that space suit? You know, I heard in Iceland it might have been a little tricky with the water scenes.
Yeah, so in the water scene, I was wearing a dry suit underneath. Well, maybe we all were, but I was wearing a dry suit under the space suit, and it was in theory going to keep that cold Icelandic water out. So it was time to get under the piece of fuselage I did. And all of a sudden, about 10 seconds later, I was like, oh my God, what is that? And I realized it was a fjord coming up through my costume. And I didn't know what happened. And so, you know, I just kind of sat there and did as many takes as I could. And then after, I don't know how long, but it was a while, I started to think, yo, hypothermia is a real thing. Like, you should... So, and there's no Google in the middle of the fjord. So I went to the first AD and I asked him what the symptoms were. And he said, why do you need to know? And I said, well. And we were rolling like 5 seconds later and we didn't do too many takes after that. And then when we got out, when I de-rigged, we found out that there's a zipper across the back of the dry suit that had been left open by 1 inch. It's okay, it happens, you know it does. So, and everything turned out fine. I didn't get hypothermia. And if anything, it informed my performance.
All right, and Jessica, another great performance. I mean, my gosh, you just keep turning them out, one after another. And this is a room full of actors, and I think they're really going to appreciate this because when you watch your performance, you realize of all the characters, you're the one almost not connected to anyone else when you're doing this. And this is a movie certainly about human connection, but shooting it wasn't that way.
Yeah, I didn't get to go to space, and I felt slightly isolated, not in a negative way. It's just the characters isolated, and I never met Chris before I showed up. He and I actually had never had a one-on-one conversation. Like, you know, the first time we met was at a costume fitting, and the costume designer was there, and then we talked again at one point at the hair and makeup, but we never were like had a conversation really one-on-one. And then I was shooting, and we started the first day with the stuff that she speaks to the camera. I mean, I was just kind of thrown in there. And part of me wonders, I didn't realize it until recently, part of me wonders if that was on purpose, which makes him even more of a genius. Because, you know, as an actor, I do that myself, but it was kind of created on set for me. That in not a negative way. It never made me feel bad, but you know, it was a perfect place for me to start as Murph.
And you were so believable doing all those equations. I never got through algebra prep in school, so I don't understand any of that, but it sure looked real to me. So obviously, you've got a background in theoretical physics and all of that.
Yes. I've studied. I'm really an astrophysicist, highlighting as an actress. Our executive producer is a leading theoretical physicist, Kip Thorne, and we all spent time with him. And he was on set, actually, when I was writing that equation. And I was bemoaning it a bit because, I've worked sometimes and I've had to memorize lines in other languages. And that's difficult. That's what I thought was the hardest thing. But actually, even in doing that, you still know your intention. So it's easy to memorize something when you know what you're portraying. And memorizing numbers that are just jumbled together, and I will never fully understand why this 3 means this compared to his ideas that he's putting together in his equation. And I was bemoaning it a little bit, and he said to me, in actuality, Jessica, this equation lasts 3 blackboards long. And immediately I shut my mouth because I realized, I said, I've got it really good, that I just have this quick little beautiful mind moment where I'm geeking out on the board.
It was impressive.
Thank you. I got to act.
Matthew, I wanted to ask you about working opposite machine here, TARS in particular. I thought that was so cool. It looked like you developed a real relationship with an inanimate object there. So.
Well, we tried to, and it wasn't inanimate. It was not inanimate for me because Bill Irwin was there, the voice.
The voice was
Tarzan
on the.
Case.
He was on the set.
He was there every single day, and he was given the movement. And so, even off screen, if he had his stuff on screen, I'd be off the set with a headset, and we'd get, we tried to get a bit of a jive going, because in some ways I always looked at he was my sidekick. He was actually one of my favorite entities on the entire ship, maybe because I could program him how I wanted to program him, but we tried our best to get a certain rapport together, as far as nicknames and things like that, and he was there every single day. Every single day. Nobody else moved TARS. I mean, even if he was just standing up on the side of the scene, Bill was there every single day. Mm-hmm. He may have been there more than any of us because he was there early because he had to learn how to move his TARS in case, and that took him weeks, if not months. And he was there every day, whether it was off-camera readings or what. He was always there, never a recording.
It's really amazing. It really comes off on screen just flawlessly. It's just really cool relationship and character, I think, in the movie, too, yeah. Now, I wanted to ask you, too, this is, again, an audience of actors. This movie, I understand, and for this kind of a movie, we're so used to computer-generated effects and CGI. There's very little CGI in this, from what I've heard. It's real sets. Remember those folks in Hollywood? What was that like working in, having a real environment rather than working against a green screen all the time like you would do in this? Yeah, sure.
Oh, okay. Well, for me, what, Jessica?
Well,
no, I was just thinking because I just wrapped a movie a couple weeks ago, and it was all shot against a blue screen. And I think that, one of the things that you have to do with that one is you have to work so hard to keep your energy up when it's not real. You have to keep reorienting yourself, reminding yourself of what the reality is, even if the reality is something fantastical. And in this, I don't know, I get pretty entranced by just the reality of things, like when you're in Iceland and you're cold and and you're tired, all of a sudden you look at the water and the way the light's bouncing off of it, and you get a burst of energy off of that. You get constant inspiration. So there's that, but there's also just the pleasure of being able to really, really believe your circumstances, There's a scene where I'm playing someone who's wearing a spacesuit for the first time in a spaceship for the first time, looking out a window at a wormhole for the first time. And I was actually doing all of those things as a human being at the same time. So there's just that little extra something, I think,
Tell the story. What did he say to you about, Chris say to you about pretend?
Yeah, that was chilling moment for me. We were on set, and so sometimes you'd be doing the zero-G stuff, and you'd be on wires, and sometimes you'd be on a rig lifted from below, attached by a harness. And sometimes, we didn't have any of that stuff because someone else was in the foreground of the shot, and they needed the harness, and so you just kind of have to act it. And actually, one of the actors in the movie who came on a little bit later was laughing because he was like, "No, I thought I was going to get to do all this big stuff, and basically you're just doing this the whole time." And he goes, "God, I love these big budget movies." So I was kind of in the background of a shot, and I just so Chris gave me my note, and I said, "Okay, so I just sort of I'm here, I'm thinking this, then I pretend to float over here," and he gave me a very kind but very serious look and said, "Oh, we don't pretend here."
Yeah, the natural elements of the thing. I mean, we didn't have to pretend as much. I mean, you got to deal with the natural circumstance. You got to react to the natural circumstances. You did have dust in your eyes. When we were in the spaceship, when we banked right, the gravity took your body to the left. So we didn't have to really use our imagination as much because the toys, the machines were built. And so we got to behave. And it's a lot easier to behave.
I also think it's really impressive, too, to get that emotional level that you both got to with a space helmet on a lot of the time, which can't be easy, I would imagine, because acting is a lot of through the eyes, and you really brought it home.
There were probably quite a few decent performances that we had to reshoot because the helmet was fogged up and you couldn't see anyone in it. And you're like, "Oh, that was my best take." It's too bad we couldn't see you.
Anything. And there were actually moments that the spacesuit I thought helped because, like in the scene where we're on the water planet and we just lost Doyle, or specifically I've just lost Doyle. There was one take where my helmet wouldn't come off, and you just kind of get caught up in the moment, and I started to hyperventilate and get claustrophobic, and I couldn't get the helmet off, and when I finally got it off, I was shaking, and all of a sudden I realized I didn't know if it was me, and I didn't know if it was Brand. It just kind of worked, and then that choice became one that I made every subsequent take because I thought that's exactly how she would feel. So it was a great help to have all the practical stuff.
I wanted to ask you, too, because you're playing Murph, but there's two other actresses that are also playing that character, obviously at different ages. Wonderful Mackenzie.
Mackenzie Foy.
Fabulous, yeah.
Yeah.
We should give her applause. And then, of course, later in the film, the great Ellen Burstyn. Yeah. Did you have any interaction with either one of them?
Yes, definitely Mackenzie. And I'm going to be able I took all these pictures of us, like face to face, just like half of my face and half of her face. And I can post them soon when the movie comes out. I've had them forever. And, actually Chris was the one who suggested that, which was great for me, that we hang out. And when I was talking to Chris, I'm trying to decide, about Murph, he asked me, he said, "Well, I'd like you to spend a lot of time with Mackenzie." And she and I spoke about what she does, what the character does at school, what it was like when that scene happens and she's left behind, and, the character's favorite things to do, all of that stuff. Even like the little things of like we wear the pencil in our hair. We had planned all that. And I've done it before where I've shared a role with another actress. I love it. I got to do The Debt with Helen Mirren. And how incredible to do this film and to share it with Ellen Burstyn and Mackenzie. And I think she just starts it out so beautifully. You love this woman because of her performance, and she's like done such a service. She's like helped me out and helped Ellen out by starting it off like that. And Chris gave Ellen my chin and my nose.
Really?
Yeah.
In the makeup.
Yeah. So when I first saw it, I was like, not so bad. I'm pretty happy about this aging.
It was pretty cool because you get to work, Matthew, with the same character at totally different ages, totally opposite sides of the scale. And that scene with Ellen was wonderful too. But.
Yeah, I mean, most of this, we started the shoot in Calgary, which was when we were on the farm. And it was Mackenzie and I and Timothy, who was played my son, and Mr. Lithgow, and all the combines, and all the corn. And then I think we shot there for at least a month. So that was very informative for me about how Mackenzie and I related to each other there at that time. And I just remember, I mean, one of the, for Cooper, his daughter Murph is I said this the other night, and I'm going to say it again. She's a mini Cooper. He's
Too good a line,
It's
man.
so good.
I shouldn't have precursed that because it got a bigger laugh the other night when I did it accidentally. Anyway, Cooper sees a lot of himself in her, as far as dare and discovery and stuff. And then, worked with Ellen. It was basically it was one day, but it was a little spooky, as far as thinking about the time that had passed and to play that reality and see it if you haven't seen someone in that many years. It was, when I say spooky, it was a bit like a ghost, but it was real. And that was fun.
Cool. Now, we got time for a few questions, so if you have one, and your hand went up first, so you're going to get to ask it. Go ahead.
Well, I just have to say incredible film and stellar performances by all three of you.
Incredible film and stellar performances. Interstellar performances, yes. Go
But
ahead.
I really love Chris Nolan as a filmmaker because I really feel like he challenges realms of time and space and reality and these really intelligent concepts. And I wanted to know, as an actor, how is it to not only have to grasp these concepts that not necessarily the public even grasps, but then to execute it so magnificently? Like, what is it like discussing those ideas with him and then taking it and making it your own?
Okay, she's basically asking about the challenge of these concepts and these big ideas and then bringing them to life here, and how did that work in discussing it with Chris Nolan and getting it on film?
He was like a mystery to me in a way. Probably how her father would have been to her at that time. And I found a lot of my things through clues. I was like a detective on set. I noticed that the production company, the name of it on top of the call sheet was called Flora's Letter. And one day I met a little girl on set, Chris's daughter, her name was Flora. And he didn't tell me anything like this. And as soon as I found that out, I was like, my character completely opened up, and it just like, it reached something. He also, he left me alone a lot sometimes in takes. He let me do it 3 or 4 times. And then he would come in and just give me a teeny bit of direction that would deepen my performance in a way that I didn't imagine. Like at the last scene when it's weird because we're being videotaped, so I'm like spoilers galore, but at the last scene that I have in the film, he said to me, "This is her Zen. Try that, Zen." And I went, "Zen, peace." Oh, okay. And I came out and I did it, and that's the take that's in the film. So he's really gentle with his direction and not imposing, but very precise and intelligent.
Anybody? Yeah.
Well, I was just going to say, one of the things that I got really excited by with the science in the film was that it was allowed to take on an emotional component. And that was something that was freedom that Chris gave. I mean, I can't speak for everybody, but certainly my character. And it was born from an understanding that this was a world that she had grown up in, that she'd had to keep her emotional relationships very, confined to a few people, but that science is at the heart of those relationships. And so that for her, it's a language of love. And that and the fact that physics is so beautiful, and the fact that the visuals of it are so, I mean, just mind blowing and stunning, it definitely helped. But if you are curious, I would recommend an article came out in Wired.com today talking about the visual effects department and how they worked with Kip Thorne to create the black hole. And the author of that article talks about how we look at a black hole and we see beauty. Kip Thorne looks at it and sees truth. My guess is that Chris sees both.
Yeah, sure, right there.
Two comments or questions. First of all, the affinity that seemed to develop between you two toward the end, and you left to go, I think, to see her. And we don't know, but you guys fell in love. It's fair to say.
Unless he has another chick on another planet.
They fell in
Did
love.
you have another dude on that planet you were
I'm
on?
not talking about man. I'm not talking about nature.
Evolution.
You're carrying one of those babies. It shows up, you're pregnant.
And, okay.
The second question, unrelated to that so much, but it's science fiction, obviously, but the reference of Lazarus, is that referencing the Bible? Or if so, could you expand on it?
So asking about the reference of Lazarus, and does that reference the Bible, or
Or is it strictly science and just...
or is it strictly science? Okay.
Well, you'd have to ask. I mean, you'd have to ask Chris. I answered something for him the other night, and I'm not going to answer this one for him. Although I do think I know what he said, but no, I'm not going to answer it.
Just curious, because clearly the name references it.
Sure.
Well, I mean, and then when a certain actor appears in the film, he says, "You have literally raised me from the dead," which is, of course, the story of Lazarus in the Bible. So I think it's reasonable to assume that you're encouraged to make that inference. But I won't speak for Chris either.
That's why he makes these movies you have to see more than once, too. This is the first time you see this movie. This is just your first time, folks. All right, somebody, anybody else yeah, right over here. Yeah.
Wondering, were there any scenes where you wanted to take the helmet off and you thought it once with it off and once with it on, or not? Because there was one scene I just wanted it off. I was like, I wanted to see your face.
Oh, so she's asking to.
But like when you're trying to break through the bookshelf, I was like, I wanted that helmet off. I could still see your face.
All right. So she wanted the helmet off quite a bit, and
We all want more of Matthew McConaughey's face.
It's true.
After a while, when I was up to about 115 degrees in that helmet and profusely sweating, yeah. But no, I knew by that time that the rules were it wouldn't pass if Cooper all of a sudden took his helmet off. And then I would take it off and I'd be like, oh yeah, here's where you would die.
I had it off and on when you were driving, I guess when you first come in.
In the spaceship, you could, and we went over the rules of when you could and when you couldn't. Yeah.
I'd just like to point out something about my co-star here because he won't mention it. That whole scene in the end at the Tesseract where he's doing some of the most phenomenal acting I know I've ever seen, he was suspended from the ceiling in a harness. I don't know if that's why you were crying, but it was great. But it's not an easy thing to do.
If I get this take, they'll let me down.
wow. Okay, time for a couple more. And yeah, right up there. Yes, sir. Yes. That's you. Yeah.
I was just kind of curious about your process. All of you are at the top of your game. I was kind of curious when you're working with a filmmaker, do you like them to be very involved and intense or laid back at this point?
Okay. The process he wants to know, basically.
For me, it depends on each film. This one, because of the nature of the character, it was nice to kind of be excluded in a little way, or not excluded, but left alone, and then he would always be there when I clearly needed him. But it depends. I mean, for The Help, the director was, jumping in, giving us moonshine, like, we were having fun. It depends on what the character is, what the film is. I change my process that way.
For me, it was kind of funny. When I started out as an actor, I felt very strongly about having a process, and it was, it was crucial. It was essential. I couldn't do it any other way. And then I made a series of films where I worked, and they weren't bad people, but I worked with directors who weren't all that interested in my process, and I was treated as maybe too intense, and I was encouraged to lighten up, and I forgot that, honest to God, spent a couple of performances, and they're pretty easy to pick out in the lineup, but where I forgot about having a process. And when I began work on Dark Knight Rises, it was my first camera test, and Chris came up to me and he said, "So, just curious, what's your process like?" And all of a sudden, I just made up my mind for the rest of my life. Forget anybody who thinks actors don't need processes. If Christopher Nolan is fine with it, then everyone else can just, deal. So I said to him, I'm a little out of touch with it. I'm gonna have to get back to you, and it changes every time. Generally speaking, I like there to be intense trust. I like to have the conversations up front, and then I like on set for us to kind of go. I've worked with directors where, we got to the point where we could just make eye contact and I knew what they were going to say and what they wanted, and that's great. But it is, like just what Jessica said, it's different every single time. I just want somebody who cares, and I want someone who also respects actors and respects what it is that we do and what we need to do it.
Matthew?
I think the question was, do you want someone who's aggressive or laid back? I don't care. Whatever it takes for us to get it done. I don't care if we got to fight about it. If you get to get it on film, we're all happy at the end of the day. I know I'm going to come in with some strong opinions. I'm going to have done my homework and come in with some strong opinions, and I'm going to come in knowing that I own my man. He's mine. That doesn't mean I don't want to be pushed in the right direction or nudged or told to scale something back or something like that. I want that. But I know I'm the bloodline. It's coming out of my mouth. It's coming out of my body. And I think a good director wants an actor to come in with ownership. That's why they hired us. There are days where I've been in there and gone, I'm just connecting the dots. I'm not seeing the 10 ways to tell the truth right now. I'm just trying to keep from telling a lie. That's not near as fun as when I go in and go, I've got 10 ways to tell the truth today. So use whatever you want, I'll grab it. And let's not even talk about it. Let's keep the camera rolling, and I'll show you with your direction. Now, like I said, it's much more fun to have 10 ways to tell the truth than the days when I'm going in going, I'm just going to get away with this one. Sometimes it's not, the clarity's not there.
Was your character always named Cooper? Maybe I should ask this guy over here, but
He knows. As far as I know, yes. Jonathan, Chris had said earlier, I think it was today or yesterday, that he loves the names that Jonathan gives characters.
I think Cooper's, for me, I just kept thinking Cooper's great too, because outside of this realm and outside of the character, I kept thinking this is a hero, an American hero like Gary Cooper might have played, something like that. And to have Cooper, it's just a reminder to me that we don't have very few actors like that now, and you're one of them, man. You're really.
Thank you.
It's cool. Okay, we're going to take one more question, and your hand's way up there. So go ahead. Yes.
I was actually wondering if the three of you remember the job that got you your union card.
That's a great question.
Remember the what?
Our SAG card, right? That's the question. What job got us our SAG card? I know mine. I was so excited. Probably half the people in this room, or maybe some people in this room, I got it from ER. I was ER, yeah. I did a guest spot on ER. I know that show went on forever, and they always had people. I was right out of school, and it was an amazing day. I was so excited to have health insurance.
And where'd you get your SAG card?
I was 14 years old. It was a Better Homes and Gardens Realty commercial. And so I got mine in Maplewood, New Jersey. And I was also very psyched to have health insurance.
And Matthew?
I was 21 in Austin, Texas, and got a job on a film called Dazed and Confused. And I do remember I think the daily rate was $325. And I was like, is this legal? This is so much fun, and they keep inviting me back, and I've got this card, and it guarantees me $325, and the most I made waiting tables the last 3 years is $72 a night. This is great. I do remember that excitement.
In that movie, you got to say, all right, I remember.
First words I ever said on
Oh,
screen.
I'm so sorry. Can you tell that story? It's so
You have
good.
to tell it. It's really good.
Please tell the story about your man and please.
You want the,
We heard it on the airplane.
Come on.
It's really
Do
good.
you want to hear him tell the story?
Yeah, we want to hear him tell the story.
All right, so we're in Austin, Texas, and I've been cast as the role of David Wooderson, and it had, I think, 3 scenes. And I come up for a wardrobe makeup test on set one night, and it's a set that I'm not supposed to be working on, but I step out as Wooderson with the hair comb over and the peach pants and everything, and Linklater comes up and he's like, "Great, I love this. Great, you know, what? We're here at the Top Notch. It's the last day of school. I think wouldn't Wooderson be out trolling tonight?" And I was like, "Yeah, he probably would." And he goes, "Well, you know, Wooderson's probably been with, you know, the hot cheerleader, the head of the student council girl. You know, do you think he'd go after the redheaded intellectual?" I'm like, "Well, yeah, he would." And he goes, "You want to be in a scene, make something up?" And I was like, "Give me 30 minutes." I walked off, thought about everything Wooderson, that what he'd be doing that night. I come back, we played verbal ping pong, as we call it, threw some ideas around. And he goes, "Want to shoot it?" I was like, "Sure." So I had been listening to a live Doors album at that time, and Jim Morrison barks at the crowd one time. He goes, "All right, all right, all right, all right," real aggressively, right? I'm not thinking about it at this time, but we go up, I get my 70s Chevelle, Melba Toast, Roy Cochran Slater sitting there next to me, and now I'm starting to get a little nervous. I've never been on film, and I know the idea is I'm going to pull up over here and improvise and try and pick up Marissa Ribisi. Started getting nervous. I'm going, "Who's my man? Who's my man? Who is my man? What's he about?" I was like, "Okay, my man's about his car." Boom, yes, I'm in my Chevelle. "My man's about his weed." "Yes, there's Slater. We are getting high." I was like, "My man is about rock and roll." There we go, Nugent's on the stereo. And I said, "Well, my man's also about chicks." And I heard action. And I went, "No. I got 3 out of 4. And there's the 4th. All right, all right, all right." First words I ever said on screen.
And that, to answer your question, is a great question about process. We just heard that. I just want to say something. They have to go somewhere right away, so I want just to hold everybody in their seats while they get out of the theater here. But before they leave, I just want to thank Matthew McConaughey, Anne Hathaway, and Jessica Chastain so much
Thank you,
for coming out here tonight.